A game consists of tossing a 1 rupee coin 3 times and noting the outcome each time. And Ramesh will win if all these 3 outcomes are same. Otherwise, he will lose the game. So we have to find out the probability that Ramesh will lose the game. And the event is tossing 3 coins. Tossing coins 3 times. Tossing a coin 3 times. This is the event. So, first time if you will, this is first time. Again we will toss it second time. And then we will toss it third time. If first time we will toss it, then we may get a head or may tail. Second time similarly. And we will have the combinations. And that is HTT. Now similarly THH. For T we will get HT again. TH and TTT. And so there are total 8 number of outcomes. So total outcomes is equal to 8. Suppose if you will take the win situation, probability of win that Ramesh will win the game, probability that Ramesh will win the game will be equal to, if all the 3 heads or 3 tails will come, then Ramesh will win. That means the favorable outcomes are, if all 3 are H or all 3 are tail. Only 2 favorable conditions for winning. The probability of winning is number of favorable outcomes by total number of outcomes. So this will be equal to, here number of favorable outcomes for winning is 2 and total number of outcomes is 8. So probability of winning is 1 by 4. But question is asking that Ramesh will lose the game. So Ramesh will lose the game if any of these 3 will be the outcome, except these 2, HHH or TTT. So for losing, the favorable outcomes number of favorable outcomes will be probability, you have to write probability that the Ramesh will lose the game will be equal to, that is 6 is the favorable for it. For losing the game, 6 outcomes are favorable, divided by total number of outcomes is equal to 8. That is equal to, if you simplify it will be equal to 3 by 4. So 3 by 4 is the probability that Ramesh will lose the game. So this one is the answer. Or also we can write also in this way, probability of losing the game will be equal to 1 minus probability of winning the game. So also we will get 3 by 4.